The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mindgarden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. We had 1 week off, and now we are back. The Sandy and Toddcast continues.
It continues, Todd, and we have just gotten ourselves through COVID. Both of us, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes.
Yeah, this is, Season 5, Episode 11. She Gave It To Me. It's next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Feeling a bit lost? Not sure what's holding you back? A transformational tarot session with Eclectic Path Wellness can provide the guidance you need, combining tarot and coaching to help you understand and navigate the changes you may face. Heal, empower, and clarify your path. Connect with us on Facebook at Eclectic Path Wellness.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Here we go, another Sandy and Toddcast. She is Sandy.
He is Todd.
And she gave me COVID.
And I did not. Well, that's kind of up for debate, apparently. There are some differing opinions on that, although I'm not quite what you referred to as a witch in all social media for about 3 weeks straight.
So we didn't have a podcast this last week because you were busy, and so we decided we were going to take a week off. But
Yep.
the podcast prior to that, so our last podcast, you were sick. You were just getting over COVID.
Yeah.
And I, the day that we recorded, and I remember mentioning this, I said that I was getting a little scratchiness in my throat, and I was a little congestion, having to clear a little, post-nasal drip and stuff like that. And that was on a Thursday that we recorded.
Right.
On Friday, it was like I got hit by a train.
And I'm not laughing because it's funny.
Oh, no, you're laughing because it's funny. I get it.
Well,
I get it. And no, it's fine because I laughed at you too. I laughed at you.
You did laugh at me. I'm still going to cough through this because I still can't get rid of this stupid cough. But it was funny because the day that we recorded, I heard you clearing your throat and I thought to myself, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yep.
because that's what happened to me. And it all started innocently enough with just clearing my throat. And by the next day, it hit me pretty hard. So I was afraid. I didn't want to say anything, jinx it, but I kind of had a feeling it was coming.
So,
although we didn't spend any time together. So you
No, and here's the other thing, and here's why I blame you for it. And between that recording and today, I have said many times that I believe you gave it to me. Like you were mad at me for making fun of you. So maybe in an off-the-cuff way or in a thought you went, boy, I hope he gets it so that he understands what it's like. And then I got sick.
I know.
So here's the thing about it. I don't leave the house usually.
I know.
So a couple of weeks ago, I went up and did an investigation for Haunted State. We went up to Summer Wind, and we talked about that on the podcast.
Yep.
And I was with 3 other people, and we did go out to dinner one night. But other than that, there were, Summer Wind, there's nobody around.
Right.
So I had interviewed somebody, blah, blah, blah. So I did have some contact with people.
Right.
Nobody from that trip other than me got COVID. So I'm thinking, okay, well, where else could I've gotten this?
Mm-hmm.
That was the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday trip. On Tuesday after that, I had coffee with a friend at McDonald's.
The dreaded McD's.
There weren't a lot of people in there. I think maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 other people in the entire place. So it wasn't like we were sitting close to anybody, blah, blah, blah. She also did not have COVID. So I was the only one in the whopping 4 people that I saw in an entire week to end up sick. So I turned to you one more time and say, you frickin' gave it to me.
Well, actually, at first I was like, he's just teasing me. And then I thought to myself, well, let's talk about it. Now, we have a group chat. We belong to the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society. We are members. And we have a group chat with a lot of the members.
Yeah, so as far as we know, we haven't been thrown out like past experiences with groups and stuff like that. So far, we're still part of the group.
Apparently, we've survived
there
this
might
one.
There might be
this round.
there could be a message. Hey, I've really thought about this, and I don't think you should be part of the group, Todd.
You're not a good fit for this.
Yeah, I don't know who you are, so you know. It's a whole different story.
We're in the group chat, and we kind of bring it up.
Well,
or should I say you called me the witch?
I did, but then I brought it up seriously because
right.
when I've been sick in the past, you've had symptoms of that sickness or claim to. And so my thought process was, if I'm sick, last year I was sick, and you were getting headaches and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What says that if we're that connected that you say we are, what says that you didn't somehow give this to me?
Well, and so last year when you were really sick last year, and through a lot of your illness, I was getting, you know how they used to call them, like when a woman was pregnant and the husband would feel the pains and stuff, and they call them sympathy pains. And at first I thought, excuse me, maybe it was just that I felt bad for you. It was stressing me out because obviously I care about you. And I was worried about you. And so I was doing that. And then it sort of started to evolve in my understanding that I really believe that I was picking up on, you could call it psychically. You and I, we know we're connected, very connected. And I realized that I was probably literally picking up because once you started to feel better, once you got your diagnosis and you started feeling better, I was physically feeling better. It was just the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And so what's to say that somehow we aren't connected to the point where you could get it? Now, it might sound funny to people, but then Sue actually brought up the idea that if we're so connected that our immune systems could be connected psychically, and that if my immune system was bad enough that I caught COVID, what's to say that your immune system didn't drop as well and that allowed you to catch COVID? Now, I will say that this strain of COVID is beyond catchy. Literally, before Dave knew he was positive, he was literally in the car with my mother for 5 minutes, and she got COVID from him. So it is extremely catchy. And it's not at all what we thought it was for quite a while. We knew it was, transmissible, but this is like beyond that. So it's possible that even in Mickey D's or anywhere, you could have picked it up.
It's so transmissible that you gave it to me states away from one another. And let me just say this.
I don't know that I directly gave you COVID.
I'm pretty sure you did. Deep down, I feel like you absolutely did. No doubt about it. And,
we should share.
This strain is not horrible, but what I'm finding out about it is now that I'm feeling a little better, still have a little congestion in my chest, still clearing my throat, not coughing so much anymore. The coughing has ended for me. I see you still have yours.
Yeah. But
for me, it's the exhaustion and the brain fog is very real.
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot of things, I'm pretty sure my doctor told me she's pretty sure that I had it last fall, but it was a totally different strain, obviously, and it was a totally different set of symptoms. And at the time, I wasn't sure what I had, that I actually had COVID, and I didn't even think to test because it wasn't your stereotypical symptoms that you think of for COVID that they, drum into your head. And so I was okay after that. But then this one is kind of what they talk about with the after effects. It's not just the flu. I got a case. Now, Dave was fortunate that His was milder. His was and of course, he's the one who gave it to everybody, and his was the mildest.
Thanks, Dave. If it wasn't for Dave, he wouldn't have gave it to your mom. He wouldn't have gave it to you, and then in turn, you wouldn't have given it to me. So
my mother ends up in the hospital for 4 days because she is brittle, because she has COPD and everything. But she's fine. But
like Dave didn't plan that. Like he wants to off his mother-in-law, so he goes and gets COVID and then spends 5 minutes with her.
The ironic part was that he picked her up from the hospital because she had a breathing incident from the COPD and then gave her COVID on the way home. I'm not kidding. You can't make this stuff up. But it does have after effects. I'm noticing that. Now, I'm type 2 diabetic, and I've noticed that my blood sugar is running 10 to 15 points higher right now. And I'm not changing anything. As a matter of fact, when I was in the throes of COVID, I wasn't really eating much because I couldn't eat. I had taste and smell. I just was not hungry at all.
Same.
You just
and my
don't
throat
want
hurt
to.
so much that I couldn't really swallow it. And the sore throat thing was very bad for me.
I am pretty tough. Like I can handle pain pretty well. But this to me was torture because it was every little thing all together at once that I hated. It was the sore throat, the cough, the stuffiness. It was all upper respiratory, but it was like a bad flu. And there are after effects. And we're finding that out now because we're sitting here before we started recording and we're comparing our illnesses. And yeah, there are some actual lasting effects from this. Milder than what you would normally hear in a different strain, I guess you could say, because, in the beginning, they were talking about long haul COVID as being, this horrible, horrible thing. I guess I'm just really tired now, more so than when I was sick. And I have this cough and it's driving me nuts. But everything else is good, though. Everything else is fine. And I'm just hoping that my blood sugar comes down to its normal because I'm in no way in danger. Like literally, my diabetes is well controlled, but I'm still anal retentive about that stuff. And it gives me a headache thinking that I'm 10 to 15 points higher than I normally am. Because you know how I get anxious about that stuff.
No, not at all. I've never known you to be anxious about anything like that. You're as cool as a cucumber about everything in life.
How about the day my mother calls me and she says, Sandy, I'm sick. And now Dave tested positive Thursday. I tested positive Friday. She tests positive on Saturday. She says, I have COVID. Should I go to the hospital? I said, yes, you need to go to the hospital. But Dave and I couldn't because we were both positive. So we couldn't take her anywhere. We couldn't do anything for her. So she called the ambulance, which is normal. They all know her. It's like Norma on Cheers. And she says to me very dramatically, she says, I don't want to die. I said, Mom, you're not going to die. You're going to get a cold or the flu. You're going to be okay, And she had herself convinced that she was dying. And she is brittle. She is, more susceptible. But they had her in the hospital for 4 days. She was fine enough to complain about everything. Every single thing she was fine enough to complain about. So she's home now and she's got her oxygen and she's fine.
I want you to do something. Next time you see your mom, I want you to be very silent about it, but I just want you to sit and look at her and realize that you are looking at you.
No.
Oh, yeah. No. It's going to be you in 5 or 10 years. Oh, yeah.
5 or 10 years? Mm-hmm. No. I have to say that I have never smoked a day in my life. And
doesn't matter. So, she smoked around you probably as a child, so you got plenty of secondhand smoke. That'll be kicking in here shortly, too. Back then, everybody smoked. They smoked during pregnancy. She smoked while she was pregnant with me. She
why I think my lungs are screwed up.
She probably smoked in the delivery room, to be honest with you. She's probably sitting there pushing you out and puffing on a cigarette at the same time.
Probably that's what they did back then.
I mean, doctors and nurses would smoke right there. I mean, it was, I worked at a grocery store back in the late 80s and early 90s, and, they'd be back in the meat department chopping your meat, smoking cigarettes.
I know. It's just, it was the way of life. Not that it was right or wrong, but it was just the way of life back then, and nobody thought about it. But, but it was very funny. And so she's, I don't want to die. I said, Mom, you're not going to die. You're going to the hospital. They're going to take good care of you.
It's you.
So she's fine.
It's you. It's exactly you.
I don't go to the hospital.
Well, no, not yet, but you're still, I'm going to die. Oh, okay. Here's the other thing that was really weird. So you were a little sick Thursday before you tested positive, and you tested nothing, right?
Thursday I tested nothing.
Right. Friday you tested full blown.
Yeah.
So, and here's the funny thing. Exactly 1 week later to the day, Thursday, I'm a little sick, test nothing. Friday, I'm literally sitting there shivering, shaking, and in pain. Every muscle and joint in my body ached that night. Tested positive. So if you try to tell me that you are not the one who gave it to me, you're full of shit. So do me a favor. Do not, no matter what you do, please do not get monkeypox, okay? Because I don't want that next.
I don't think I'm going to be susceptible. Although I did.
I don't know. Listen. I don't know anymore.
Listen, I have decided that I am not going out in public in large crowds. The only time that I am going to be in a large crowd is if it's outside and they're all 50 feet away from me. That's about it. I'm going back to my solitary life that I love. So, and enjoying it.
Trust me, in weeks, you'll be like, oh, I'm so lonely. I'm so bored. I've got to get out. I'm just going to have dinner with the girls. That'll be that thing.
No, I'm perfectly fine just the way I am. I have my little she shed up here in my studio, and I love it. And it's just the way I want it. And this is my life. So I'm happy about that. I just don't want to get sick again. I hate getting sick. I hadn't been sick in 3 years, and then all of a sudden I get COVID. So, anyways.
I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad I'm feeling better.
And I'm glad you're feeling better. I am. So who knows? It's up for the debate, but Sue had a great point about our immune systems. I mean, we've even been told.
You gave it to me. I mean, I said it to you.
I don't know. Not on purpose, but I don't know.
But nobody gives anybody COVID on purpose. It just kind of happens.
Remember, Cindy Cock told us that we've shared 28 previous lives together, and we're in the same soul group.
Oh, Gina?
Or Gina. I'm sorry, Gina Cock. Yes.
No, first of all, no, I don't remember that because that would require me having some sort of memory. And second of all, will somebody please just end my life for me now? Please? I mean, just do it. Just get rid of me.
Gina Cock knew a lot of stuff about us, and I thought it was very interesting. We'll have to have her back.
Not about me. I can tell you that much.
She's great.
All right. What else did you have a topic on today?
Oh, so I wanted to talk to you about something else this week, and I think everybody will find it kind of interesting. I love thinking about these sort of things that make you go, in the paranormal world. And I had forgotten about this episode of Kindred Spirits until the other night. I was listening to an episode of Haunted Road with Amy Bruni. And do you remember the episode? I think it was this season. They were down in Little Rock, Arkansas at the Fee Mansion, Fee House, they called it. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay.
As I just said, no memory of anything.
I know. So as I'm listening to it, she's sort of recounting the history of the house. And I'm going to give you a real nutshell idea of the history of this house.
Nuts on Clark Shell? Okay, I'm ready for it.
Nuts on Clark Shell. And down in Little Rock, it was built in 1890, I believe. It's absolutely gorgeous Victorian home. It had 2 stories, an attic, and like 6 bedrooms, 3 baths. It was just beautiful. And the Fee family bought it in, I want to say they bought it right at the turn of the century. It was purchased by, let's see, I'm going to, actually, I don't want to screw this up, so I'm going to read this to you guys. It was Frank Fee and his family who purchased this house. And they had a bunch of children. And it was really interesting kind of background on this family because he and his wife, Mamie, were married. He had been married before. She had been married before. And they were seeing each other. They ended up getting divorced from their spouses and ended up together. and had some more more children. And long story short, there was a lot of death and just bad things, bad things that happened to them. And Mamie and Frank died first from, I think it was, he was traveling. It was in 1922. He was 62 years old and he was on a business trip and he had a fatal heart attack. And there was some sort of idea as well that he had kidney failure, but he passed away. Mamie was a widow and they had a few children and one of them was Edward. And Mamie was drying her hair in the kitchen one day and she ended up catching herself on fire while she was trying to dry her hair over a grate. And she suffered some pretty serious burns. And eventually she passed away. She didn't want to tell anybody about it because her son Edward was supposedly getting married soon and she didn't want to ruin that.
I do remember that now.
Do you remember
yes,
that? And
now I remember this.
because she waited so long, she ended up passing away.
Right.
Well.
And so the story was there that there were entities or energies in the house, but neither one was aware that the other one was there.
Yes. So her daughter, Catherine, and her husband and their daughter, Patricia, all lived in the house.
Right.
When Mamie passed away. And not long after, there was a big argument because I think Catherine blamed one of the brothers for the fact that the mother died. There was just some argument that revolved around Mamie.
Right. There was some family blame going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Catherine went to the top of the stairs and took a bottle of acid and drank it, essentially killing herself.
Right.
So fast forward.
Well, and listen, when you're trying to make a point and you really believe you're right, what you want to do is climb to the top of the stairs, take some acid and kill yourself. That will make everybody know that you are correct.
Be as dramatic as you possibly can. And kill
I'm
yourself
going
by
to drink this acid now and you'll believe that I'm right.
Exactly. Right? Makes perfect sense to me. Well, the whole story, they tried to cover it up a little bit. The story that was officially the story was she thought it was headache medicine and she took it. Although Patricia seems to have told all in later years because she was 9 years old at the time and she witnessed everything that happened when her mother died.
Yeah, so the family tried to kind of cover it up a little bit.
Yeah.
When the coroner's asking what's going on, the story was changed a little bit. Right. Okay.
Right. So somebody bought the house after, and then Edward ended up dying he was a colonel in the Army and he was killed at age 35 in an Army plane crash when the plane struck a radio guide wire in Dallas, Texas. So there was a lot of death in this family, a lot of things going on that ended in death, unfortunately. So in 1940...
Let me just interject. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of death in most families.
I know.
Right? Because we all die. But there's tragic death. Okay.
Tragic death. Okay.
There was a lot of things that happened that ended up in death. Okay, great.
You're such a jerk. Anyways, so a lady named Audrey Hart acquired the Fee family home in 1943. And she ended up having a visitor. This is awful. So now it makes you think, what is going on with this home? Because at one point she had a visitor, a woman who somehow fell backward from the top staircase landing, and she landed in the foyer and she broke her neck and died instantly. So this is the next owner who had this happen in her home.
Right.
After that, from about the 60s to the 90s or so, even longer, the house sat vacant. So nobody in the house, just falling apart really, really in a bad way. And then this couple from, I think it was Nashville, buy this house and decide that they want to renovate it and turn it into a bed and breakfast. Now, there's a carriage house in the back, and they move into the carriage house. They renovate the carriage house, and they're going to live there, and then they're going to turn the fee house into a bed and breakfast.
Right.
So Drew is one of the guys. He and his husband bought the house. They're renovating. They're starting to get all of this paranormal activity. Now cut to Kindred Spirits. So Amy and Adam are there, and they are running into a lot of stuff as well. And they decide to do this experiment where they think, and Amy said, this is what got me thinking, and I'll relate it to a personal story afterwards, but they end up thinking or deducing that the house may actually be haunted not only by Mamie, but by Catherine, and that the two don't realize that the other one is there.
Right.
And Amy said that that concept really changed her way of looking at investigating. How many times have you and I said that? That something that we've experienced either together or apart has really changed the way that we view investigating. And what they did was they each set up their own spirit box facing each other in the hallway at the top of the stairs, the landing where Catherine died, and outside of Mamie's room, put their headphones on, had their what's the word I want, Todd?
The masks. Yeah.
The eye covers on and the blindfolds. And as they, I'm dying because this is crazy. As they did this experiment, they had no idea what the other one was saying, but you literally could hear a conversation going on between Catherine and Mamie. Like they were literally talking to each other and realizing that the other one was there in the house. Can you imagine, I for lack of a better term, haunting your family home for 60, 70 years, and someone who you loved so dearly, who you were that close to, you have no idea that they're there with you. And just the possibility is amazing to me.
Well, I think one of the first steps they took in realizing that maybe the energies that were there did not know the other one was, they would ask questions like, is there anybody else in the house? And the response was always no. And then they got different responses from a different, what seemed to be energy. And the response to that was there was nobody else there as well.
Right.
I think when we think about energies and hauntings and ghosts, we just think it's a house. Mm-hmm. It's exactly how it is right now, not only for me, but every energy around, and that it's seen by the ghost, the energy, the spirit, the same way we see it, which is basically a level plane.
Yeah, we take it for granted that all of this stuff is common sense to
right, and that energy is existing in the same time frame or space frame that other stuff could be going on too. Right. But when you really think about it, here's something to think about. It seems amazing. And yet I'm a firm believer that there is energy everywhere. I think there's things going around us right now. We don't see it. So are we any different than the energy of Mamie, who didn't see not really, right?
No.
If you're not aware of what's really going on around you because you can't see, it's no different if you're alive or dead. You still have that. There's still a little bit of that going on, I think.
You're 100% correct. And I guess I remember watching that episode and not really thinking about it at the time. But after listening to her recount the family history and then talk about how it changed her and their aha moment during that, she said that they took off the headphones and asked the crew, like, did we get anything? And they all just stood there with their jaws on the floor. They couldn't believe it. And just a quick story. This actually is relatable to me because back in February of this year, my ex-paranormal group, we investigated an old farmhouse. And at the time, again, I go in cold with everything. I had no idea that the farmhouse was actually two separate homes that were joined together probably around the 1930s. And it was interesting because as I walked from one side, and it's still not knowing that, as I walked from one side to the other of this house, it was a definite shift in energy, and everything was different to me. And I almost hesitated as I walked through the spot where it was joined because I could feel it was different, which I feel that there were energies, spirits, however you want to refer to them. I call them energies a lot of the time. There were energies from the one house. There were energies from the other house because we got different interactions on either side. But my conclusion at the end of that investigation was that neither of them knows that the other one exists. Isn't that just mind-blowing?
I'll throw it up a little bit higher. Imagine this. So you've got energy from one house that's hanging out. You've got energy from the other house that's hanging out. Now they're joined, right?
Right. Yep.
And there is energy in that house that knew those two houses as one. So there's actually a third level of energy that does actually have both spaces.
Yes. I really feel like that. I'm so glad you said that because that's a piece I didn't talk about. I do believe, this is crazy, but I do believe that you're right. There is a third level of energies in there that exists after the houses were joined. So if you look at it like this, if the houses were joined, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe it was the 1930s. You've got your energies pre-1930s in one side, energies pre-1930s, but the house was lived in after that.
Right.
So now you've got all of these energies that are happening with one house. You've got that. You're right. You've got several levels of hauntings, if you want to call it that, going on in one house at the same time. That's just crazy. And so it is very relatable. And I could feel the difference in even the interactions between one side of the house and the other side of the house were very different. They both had heavy residual. There was more intelligence on one side than there was on the other side, but they were very different. And I believe there was intelligence on both sides, and neither one of them, both just went along on their daily routines. For example, in the one side of the house that had the staircase, there was a woman who, and we actually got some readings with equipment as she was walking by me. I could feel her going up and down the stairs, but we were getting hits on the machine as she was coming up and down. But she would literally, and of course, women were, the women of the house, she would go up and down the stairs and around the landing over and over and over again, over and over and over again. And she was both intelligent and residual. And I will tell you, she had no idea what was going on in the kitchen. And it's just fascinating to me. And it is yet another aha moment where you think to yourself, we really don't know shit, Todd. We really don't. We want to know. But this is why I love investigating so much, because it's my quest to at least understand some of it.
And this is why it's so important that if you are an investigator at any level, that whether you have beliefs in one area or not, that you always keep an open mind.
Oh, I agree. And you should always go into it with an open mind.
And when somebody else has a different idea of investigating or what might be happening, be open to hearing that. It doesn't mean you have to agree. It doesn't mean that that person is right, but it may trigger something. I was thinking about that house. It reminds me of cities that have separate entities, but because of time, they've joined together. So you think of things like Minneapolis, St. Paul. Both cities have very distinct feelings.
Right.
But right now, if you're just traveling through, you would never know where one ends and one starts.
Exactly.
Same with Dallas and Fort Worth down in Texas. I mean, those were two very distinct cities. They still have their distinct qualities, but they're so large now that they just kind of run into one another. So
exactly.
That's, this is a very good point. Now, here's what's really funny. If you would have said, do you remember the episode of Kindred Spirits where the two entities didn't know that they were in the same house? I would have remembered it like that. But the minute that you said do you remember the fee house and the blah, 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 the blah, blah? I'm like,
Yeah.
nope, don't remember it at all. Because I only remember the aha moment. I don't remember all the other stuff. And then when you started talking about how one of them burned themselves and, died and then, drinking the Kool-Aid at the top of the stairs or whatever it was. And yeah.
It's fascinating to me. And I am a student of the paranormal. I always will be, because, it's not just the thrill. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we both know how exciting and thrilling it is to be able to have interactions. When we were on vacation this year and we had the interactions that we had, I've never had interactions quite like that. It was thrilling. It was exciting. It was, there's an aha moment for you. But it's not just about that. It's about learning as much as you can and trying to be as helpful as you can in some way. And being patient and being kind and just learning. And so I do think that for me, Kindred Spirits, I mean, Amy and Adam have a true, yes, they're on TV, but they have a true passion for trying to understand. And I love their style because you and I have talked about them many times and we've learned so much from their shows.
One of the things that I've also learned because of the way they kind of tell their stories is that, like, this family obviously had all this drama.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet when you start looking into your own family, any of us, you look into it a little bit and you find out stuff that was never passed on down through the years because it was either hidden or nobody talked about it or it got lost in history.
Yep.
All of a sudden you realize every damn family has drama like that. And in a lot of cases, all it takes is communicating with a couple of people within your family, because everybody else has a different view. Everybody else has different stories, all that kind of stuff. It gets really interesting really fast.
It sure does. I just tell people, I've been on this journey in the past year and you kind of have too. What are you laughing about?
You just tell people, look at my mother, and that's what I'm going to be like in about 2 years.
Be quiet. Oh, my God.
Oh, I think I'm going to die.
No, I don't talk like that.
She was kind of rambunctious in the car with you guys. You guys took a little trip, and she was telling me to shut up and everything.
So that was pretty funny, and I can't believe she actually sang that song for you.
She did. It went a little something like this.
Sweet Caroline, boom, boom, boom. Good times never seem so good.
Yeah, there you go.
So Dave goes, boom, boom, boom. What the heck is that? So as you can tell, she's feeling much better. We went away for a few days on a family vacation, and it was a lot of fun. So she's feeling better, though. But yeah, so I just say, find out about your family. I've been on the quest for the past year. I found out so many things so far, and I'm still working on it. And find out as much as you can. One thing that's interesting about the Fee story before we go is that Mamie apparently was a Christian Scientist. And the Christian Scientists, I don't know much about it, but from what I can understand, they didn't do doctors.
Yep,
they didn't really do hospitals. And I have to look into my family history a little bit because my grandmother told me when I was a child, we used to talk about stuff all the time. She said that there was a member of our family who had open heart surgery done right on the dining room table. Of course, we're talking like the 10s, 20s, 1920s. And what didn't even want it done, but they had a doctor come in and do it. They wouldn't go to the hospital. I'm wondering if I had Christian Scientists in my family, because that was like the height of that. So that's just something, you never know when you're going to find out these random things about your family line just by listening to someone else's history and someone else's family. And the paranormal world and the history world are so intertwined with each other. You don't get the paranormal if you don't have history. And that's just the way it works.
Very true.
So,
All right. I think it's time for a little spiel action. What do you think?
Here we go.
You can find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. You can also join our group, Stay Weirdos Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for more fun. Stay Weirdos is a safe place to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. Sandy and Todd also have a podcast called the Empathecary Podcast. It's for empaths, by empaths. And if you know an empath, you might want to listen too. Find and like the page on Facebook. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can also help with that too. Mindgarden Media is their latest project where the dynamic duo can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mindgarden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for staying weird.
Dan Woodward with a little spiel action from across the pond. I guess that's going to wrap up another edition of the Sandy and Toddcast.
Good one, too, because I thought that was just, now everybody, we need to know what you guys think about this, too. Not the part about, did I give Todd COVID?
No, I think we should discuss that. Yes, she did give me COVID. That's all I need you to say on Facebook. In the group, just say she gave it to you.
But the part where we're thinking about, is it possible for energies or spirits to haunt the same place and not be aware of the other one? I definitely say yes.
Actually, when you think about it, they both go very hand in hand. Again, you in our daily lives as they are, to think that two entities could exist in the same space and not know of each other seems mind-blowing. But also considering that somebody in New York State could somehow transmit. I don't laugh at it. I'm being very serious now. I think you gave me COVID.
I think I may have. We don't know. I think I may have.
Bitch.
Ass. Anyways.
All right. Until next time on the Sandy and Toddcast, where you hear Sandy say,
bye.
Actually, I was going to say,
my vagina, my boobs. That.
that. Bye.
Bye.